Hello everybody, hope you're doing marvelously well. We've done a lot of videos recently about mixing the low end, about giving definition to kick and bass. In this video, we're going to talk to two great R&B, pop, EDM, hip-hop producers and mixers. Mr. Ariel Chobaz, famous for Nicki Minaj and many others, and of course, our good friend, the Grammy winner, Mr. Bob Horn. They're going to show you how they mix kick and bass in hip-hop. This is a great video where we get Mr. Ariel Chobaz, famous for Nicki Minaj and a bunch of other great stuff. And of course, Mr. Bob Horn, Grammy winner, both doing a ton of R&B and hip hop and rap records. This is wonderful information. What's great about this is you can actually enter to win both of these courses. There's a link down there and probably one up here somewhere, and enter to win these courses. In the meantime, check out both Ariel and Bob showing how actually they use a sidechain function to give definition between the bass and the kick. Can be applied to rock as well, but this is something that's interesting that these two guys independently use very similar techniques. So this is going to be a really, really cool video for those of you that want to know a little bit more about how to mix in the hip hop, pop, R&B world. Of course, an EDM. Check it out.
You can kind of see where the majority of it's hitting in here. Not a whole lot of top end attack. It's got a little bit of sub going on. So I think, what I'm going to do is start out by leaving this first one mostly alone. I might try to just control the dynamics slightly, like barely. Let's maybe go around, 3. So this really isn't doing a whole lot. It's just making sure I'm not clipping too high above 0 because this is printed really hot. Just controlling the dynamics barely. What I'm going to do now is duplicate the track. Give this one a much, much heavier compression. So a lot of you guys probably know this is parallel compression. So you can already hear you're getting the clack of the attack, and then it's compressing out all that boominess out. Now I'm just going to set the threshold so we get like a decent sound. And I might try to adjust the release. The release is sounding pretty good. That way, the reason I'm quickening it is because when you have these drums, they're hitting close together. I don't want it to get super squashed because it's still compressing from the last hit. And if you have a slower attack, you hear that dun-dun. Now, let's take it a step further. Let's EQ this thing so it's more of just the highs and all that stuff. Because for this, I'm already getting my sub, and I'm probably going to make another kick that has even more sub in it. This, I really kind of just want to be the top end. When it comes to the drums and the kick and the bass especially, that's the foundation of your song. If you're going to spend the most time on something, I would recommend it being on the kick and bass, because if you get the foundation right, for any genre, if you get the low end right, everything else will just start falling into place. If your low end isn't right, you're gonna just go in circles trying to get the mix to a place where you want it to be. So spend as much time as you need to get it right. Don't worry that you got, kick soloed for however long, you know what I mean? You're not trying to impress anybody at this point. You're just trying to get a really good sound. And again, for this, I'm focused on just getting that click of that attack. So that's sounding pretty good. So again, so you guys can hear it raw. Right, all that thumpiness, and then let's go ahead and duplicate it again because I'm kind of, you know, kind of building up the sound of this kick because it's good, but I want to get more out of it. The next thing, you know, I'm going to try or want to try is tuning this kick to the key of the song. The lowest G available is 24.5 hertz. That's a little too low for what I'm trying to do. Let's go an octave up. So the next G is 48.99 hertz. We'll call that 49 hertz. So let's see what's going on now. Because we're adding intensity and we're adding harmonics, we're probably gonna have to bring the gain down. Okay, so I kind of want to be able to A-B this properly. Negative 9.8, so let's just make this negative 9.8. So essentially, I'll switch between the two. So that way the level stays kind of the same. We can actually hear what we're doing. So that's without the R bass. So if you don't have you know, if you're not listening with the sub right now or with headphones, you might not hear it. Not quite as noticeable, but it is doing something. So, because again, I'm just focusing on that low end, you know, we can go ahead, just roll off the top end. Doesn't really matter what. You know what, we'll just keep using this same plugin, why not? Now, again, if you don't have a sub or whatever, this is going to be pretty hard to hear, pretty subtle stuff. But this is going to be now my sub kick. So I got my main kick, I got my kick attack, I got my sub kick, and it's all being derived from the same kick. All right, that's sounding good. I'm hearing, you know, it has some sub, but not a whole lot. It seems almost more mid-rangey to me again. So what I'm gonna do is, again, stressing the importance of controlling dynamics. I'm not using anything in particular. I'm just gonna pull up my old friend, the SSL compressor. Now, just listening to the amount of dynamics it has, I'm gonna want it to have a faster release so the compressor can recover quicker. I still want the bass to have movement, but I still want that level to be right there. You don't want the sub dropping off or anything like that. So let's get a decent amount of compression going on this guy. I like that. And now I'm gonna use an EQ to bring in some of that low end. Now I'm gonna keep it right around 60 hertz because, again, like I mentioned earlier, everything below 60 to me is the sub. And I'm gonna bring in a decent amount, see how it sounds. So that's giving it a lot of body, a lot of that low end, and it sounds pretty darn clean. And what I'm hearing, it's sounding a little bit boxy to me. I don't know if you guys are hearing that at home. Let me just see if this won't even show us what that is. I'm just gonna pull up, you know, a simple EQ Some of those frequencies might actually be the frequencies that make this bass line special and make it cut, but for what I'm hearing right now, I think I can get a little cleaner before I start mixing it in. So I'm just going to take this and sweep it around, see what I find. Okay, you're hearing something there, right? It's kind of resonating. Okay, that's kind of what I'm hearing, and hearing resonate. So let's just pull that out a little bit. Now, I'm going to put that before the compressor. So let's hear how this sounds now. Okay. Simple. That's giving the low end push that I like. I'm not sure if we're going to need this, but I'm going to go ahead and put in a compressor that's being keyed off the kick, just in case I need it while I'm mixing. With hip hop and any other track that's got a lot of sub in the kick and in the bass line, you don't want them both hitting at the same time. It's going to take up too much space in the mix. You won't get the clarity and the presence while having a solid low end. So you kind of want either the kick to be above the bass frequency wise, or to have them take turns, and using a compressor that's keyed off the kick will do that. This is a trick probably most of you know. Everyone does, especially in dance, right? This is a trick that everyone uses in dance to create that pumping effect. Now, just so you guys can really hear what's going on, I'm going to go extreme with it. All right. So that's a very extreme example of what's happening. It's ducking out every time the kick's hitting. I don't want it to be that extreme, but I want you to hear how that creates the movement in the mix. So. That's really extreme. I'm going to be doing it probably more subtly.
So it's a 4 on the floor kick. Doesn't have a lot of low frequency information. Kind of more like almost like a dance kick. And that sounds cool. I wanted a little more weight to it though. So what I did was I went through all my samples and I found this sound, which has a lot more sub, a lot more body to it. Here's the original again. So obviously I can't just use that sound, or we don't have any of that nice top end that the original has. But together, they cancel out and we end up getting no middle, no lower mids, no upper bass. We end up getting just the click and super low subs. So you can hear how they're just conflicting. And if you actually go over and zoom in on the waveforms, the attack is in phase a little bit, and then by this second node it kind of starts to go out of phase, and then it's completely out of phase, 180 degrees, and stays that way for most of the sound. And then it kind of starts to get back in a little bit in the tail. They're not together, and we can't just flip the polarity 180 because they still won't be together. So I ended up using the Little Labs IBP phase tool. You just have a phase knob, you can just start turning until you find that sweet spot. So before the phase tool, which I'll show you what I did with that, have a little bit of EQ tightened up with a low shelf, and then some of the lower mids pulled out a little bit, and added some attack. Just makes it so the subs don't flutter a little bit, you know, make the speakers bottom out or anything like that. Then we have one of my favorite bass drum compressors, the McDSP compressor bank CB101. And we got medium fast attack, 15 milliseconds, but a long release. And that's basically just to hold on to the tail and keep the tail from rising up when the reduction lets go after the attack. So you can see it's holding on the whole time. Since it's a 4 on the floor song, you actually never get a chance for the compressor to release all the way. The gain reduction, once it starts, it stays reduced a good amount all the time. And then we go to the phase tool. So I'll play them how their phase was originally, their phase relationship, and then I'll bypass this and you can hear how the frequencies change. So you can hear the mid-range just comes right back and becomes evident again. It's not canceled out. So start out with the BRAINWORX EQ. Check this out. My main thing to do with this was to make use of the mono maker. So what this has on it is everything below 99 hertz becomes mono. And then we did a little bit of different EQ on the sides than we did in the middle. In the middle, I did a little high pass filter, but then a little peak at 50 hertz just to bring a little bit of that sub. But it's on the mid EQ, so it's in the middle. The sides, we filtered a little steeper, all the way up to about 100, but then we have a boost of around 200. So I'm adding some kind of upper bass, lower mids on the sides of this bass sound. Then doing a little bit of a dip at 1K and a little bit of peak at 5K where the kind of the bubbly sound of the synth is. Bypass that for you and pop that in. So in doing that, it actually seems more stereo, probably because of the different EQs from the mid to the side. So next we have DEVIL-LOC by SOUNDTOYS. It's a really cool plugin, sounds good on a lot of things. I'm using a very small amount of mix-wise, but it adds kind of a cool character. All right, then we have the cytomic glue again. And this I used kind of what I was talking before. I pushed the threshold really hard, but the range, I have it locked to 10, negative 10. So no matter what happens volume-wise, it's never going to compress more than 10.7 dB. So it's really evening those notes out, like all those notes are the same level now, which is what I want because I don't have this bass very loud in the song. It's kind of down there, so I don't want to miss any of those notes. Really slow attack, the slowest they allow, 30 milliseconds. They're kind of a medium release, and 100% on the mix, just full up on the mix. So then we follow that by the MV2 upward expander. That's kind of just doing more of what the cytomic glue was doing. Just kind of pushing up stuff and taking some of the dynamics away. Sounds like a bad thing, but in this case, it's a good thing. So then I have the Pro Q2 doing some sculpting. Once we got it in the mix and we're hearing it with the vocals and everything, I just kind of pulled these different frequencies down to make room for different things, pulling out mids to make room for some instruments, pulling out some high mids and highs for making room for the vocals, so that the I don't know what you want to call them, but the edges of the sound don't distract from the vocals and stuff. All right, and then lastly, a multi-band sidechain thing going on. We're sending from the kick drum. We have these two bands set to external, and we're compressing every time the kick plays. So we have the attacks really fast, almost instant on this band. This is the low shelf band. And then the band that's a little higher at 100, parametric band, we have at 16 milliseconds. And then the release is just kind of timed for the length of the kick. So you can see it just pushes down every time the kick hits. And sometimes I'll use this, other times I'll use like an R compressor, which is the full bandwidth. But this time I just wanted to push down on the subs. This bass has subs, the kick has subs, it's all sub information. No reason to double up on it, so might as well tighten it up on this bass. But the synthy part of the bass, the upper harmonics that are on the sides, the real stereo part, we don't need to mess with that by using a full bandwidth compressor. So we're pushing the subs out of the way on this bass every time the kick hits. Otherwise, we're leaving it alone.
Hope you enjoy the videos. Please, as ever, subscribe, hit the notification bell, go to producelikeapro.com, sign up for the email list for tons of free stuff, and most importantly, enter to win. There's a link somewhere around about here. There's one going to be flying around down the bottom there underneath the video. Have a marvelous time recording and mixing, and I'll speak to you all again very soon.